I left, went home. That's when kind of things fell apart. I had one horse, no horse trailer, a saddle, some bridles. And, we had dual pep, and it was going to be small. I remember going there. There wasn't a horse on the place, and that arena was there, and the round pen was there. There was a house, and there wasn't hardly anything there. And Winston and Bobby Pigeon built all that. How I went where I worked, I always thought it was because of fate. But now I realize it wasn't fate. It was God put me in places. How did I meet Julie, and how come we got married and stuff? And it turned out to be, it was a God thing. You think I remember someone telling me, Paul, you got ice water in your vein. My foot was rattling in the stirrup. Okay? I'm walking through the herd. You make people think that you're confident.
Yes, sir.
Your heart's a boom, 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 boom.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, guys, welcome back to 817 Podcast. This week, I got one of my great mentors and friends, Mr. Paul Hansma. Paul Hansma, how are you, my friend?
Well, I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you so much for coming on.
An honor to be called.
Well, it's an honor to get the call accepted. I should say that. So I sure appreciate you for showing up, and man, I can't wait to show the people your story, and maybe the people that don't know you, who you are and what you mean to so many people in this industry. And anyways, Paul Hansma, where you started it all right there in Canada, born in Canada. Whereabouts in Canada were you born?
Born 80 miles south of Calgary, where we're raised. 80 miles south of Calgary, Alberta, Canada.
Wow. And you got 3 brothers?
There's 5 of us.
5 of you.
There's 5 of us, all boys.
All boys.
All boys.
And 4 of y'all are horse trainers, correct?
Three horse trainers.
3 horse trainers.
One, my oldest brother had a hoof trimming business for cattle.
Okay.
Lots of dairy cattle and stuff like that. And then Winston, horse trainer, Jerry, horse trainer, and a farmer. And then me, and then my little brother, he run a small Will Rogers in
yes, sir, like a Coliseum type.
Small little egg. There was a couple of indoor arenas, and he run that for 30, I don't know, maybe 40 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow,
and
that's
his wife's
impressive.
a school teacher.
And all 3 of the brothers that train horses is pretty impressive. You've won nearly $7 million. Winston, I know, has won over 2. And Jerry's won over $1 million.
Yeah.
So 3 of y'all are in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Did y'all, obviously you grew up with some type of horse in your blood. How did all that get started as kids?
Well, Mom and Dad are from Holland. They immigrated here from after World War II, kind of like in 48 or 49. I don't know sure the what year when they immigrated from Holland.
Wow.
And he moved here to be a farmer. Moved there to be a farmer. 10 years. My oldest brother was born in 1950. I'm born in 1960, and my little brother in 61. So 5 kids in 11 years. And I just remember the story. Dad come home one day. When did these kids get so big? And that's when he decided to started buying horses and stuff.
Really? Mm-hmm. What kind of horses was he
buying?
Well,
at first it was ponies and stuff. Right. And then Dad is he wasn't happy with that. Pretty soon he was getting better horses, and then pretty soon he's buying, registered quarter horses and stuff.
Wow. And y'all
we did 4-H.
So y'all grew up showing through all kinds of different stuff.
Yeah, but did the 4-H. I remember doing a little half. My first show horse was Welch pony, half Arab, half Welsh pony, Squirrely.
Little squirrely. That sounds a little squirrely, to be honest.
And we all rode it, and we all had little ponies and stuff, and just one. Then 4-H, horse 4-H. From horse 4-H to AQHA and junior quarter horses and stuff.
And that's what led you to the States.
Then, getting older, we did lots of AQHA shows and stuff, still farming.
What did y'all farm up there?
Dryland farmers, wheat, barley, oats, some mustard, canola, some flaxseed, but all dryland farming.
Wow.
We had some hogs that we had to feed, little hog, small hog, and then finishing barn for pigs. That's why Shannon Hall calls me a pig farmer.
This is random. Taryn was actually just herding a pig. He said, I'll call you back. I'm herding a pig. So I don't know what that meant.
Yeah,
but
I don't know what that meant either. And then, in that days in the AQHA, we always knew what cutters were. But we're kind of more West Coast. I actually did rein cow horse. We did AQHA. And then from there, I did snaffle betters, cow horses, for a couple of years. But we always knew the cutters. So there was Bill Collins and Dave Batty from up there. There's another guy. So I heard all the stories about Buster and Shorty and Don Dodge, because Bill Collins, I heard, always worked with Don Dodge. And there's another friend of ours, Walter Thiessen. He used to come down and work with Shorty Freeman all the time. And then Dave Batty always told us Don Dodge stories and Matlock Rose stories. So we heard of all those guys.
So they were always in the back of your mind.
Dad used to come down to the fraternity. So we always knew about cutting.
Yes, sir. So what led you to moving to the States?
Well, Winston was gone for a while, and then he come home, and Bill Riddle was up there doing a clinic. So this was in probably 1983, 84 maybe. And I took his clinic. Winston was home, and it was a little crowded. And I thought, well, I'm going to see, maybe I can work with Bill Riddle. And Dad wanted me to go for 6 months. We got hired. I got hired. Dad wanted me to go for 6 months, and I wanted to stay for a full year, like a full cycle, just to see what it's like, Well, that full year turned into 4 years. And I never left Texas, or I never went back home. No.
Wow, that's amazing. So did you live right there in Oklahoma? Is that where you started?
No. Bill Riddle was about, when I first went for Bill Riddle, he was in Carrizo Springs at Crawford Farms. And he was there for 2 years. So that was about 30, 40 miles from the Mexican border.
Yes, sir.
Went from there to Fredericksburg, to Ferris Ranch. When he got that job, we were there for 2 years. And then I probably would have stayed longer. I wasn't planning on leaving, but that's when Bill Riddle quit training. He was going to go start training some running horses. They were going to do a running horse deal. And when he quit that, he got me a job with a non-pro, George Stout, in California. I stayed there for 2.5 years training horses. I was a trainer then. Stayed there for 2.5 years. And then when that was done, Bobby Pigeon hired me, and I moved to Weatherford in 91.
And that's what started Bar H.
That was Bar H, yeah. Me and Winston.
Wow. And so let's back up a little bit. When did you meet Julie and all that? When did all that?
Well, I met Julie when I went to go work for, I would say my first wife. She's deceased now, but I met my wife. I met her when I went to work for Bill Riddle. So I met her in 84, but I just met her. She was working for Terry Riddle. I was working for Bill Riddle, and she was working for Terry Riddle. And we didn't get together until about 10 years later.
Wow.
So I And I got married later in life. I was 33 when I got married.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
And you got 2 beautiful girls.
2 girls.
Now they're married and got kids.
They're married and got kids.
You got some great grandbabies.
Mm-hmm.
And one of your son-in-laws is a great horse trainer up and coming.
Doing good.
And definitely one of the great young talents that we don't like to see pulling in the gate, I can tell you.
Yeah. Pretty proud of him, what he can do.
Absolutely.
Just think about what I think about when I look at him, and he's 21, 22 or something. I don't even really. What I was doing at 21. I was jacking around.
Nowhere close.
Nowhere close to what he's doing. Amazing. Just having single and having fun.
Right. So let's get into whenever you moved to Bar H and started that program there with Mr. Pigeon and your brother and all that. What was that like? I mean, how did it all start out? Like, y'all both won the fraternity.
Well, when I was working for the George Stout in California, and Bobby Pigeon had horses with Pat Earnhardt, and then when he left Pat, so they bought a horse off of Winston. They really liked it, and when they had Pat and when they split up, Winston sent all his horses to Winston. Bobby Pigeon sent all his horses to Winston. And then I was standing beside Pigeon when he signed the papers for Bar H Ranch at the fraternity on one of those walls there behind the box seats. And he signed the papers to buy Bar H. It was an empty building, or a building there that hadn't been trained out of it for a few years. And then I there was no Bar H yet. And then I left, went home. That's when kind of things fell apart with that guy I worked for in California. I had 1 horse, no horse trailer, a saddle, some bridles. And I threw my horse in with Phil Rapp. There's a story about that too.
You can tell it.
I was Phil's driver for a few years, for one cycle there.
Really?
Well, I didn't have a horse trailer. I had 1 horse, and when I quit working for George Stout, I talked to Phil. I don't know how that come about. I can't remember, but Phil, I took a horse that I trained, Perry Pooh, who is a half sister to Hickapoo. But anyways, he had Playboy's Ruby. And then Rex Rosal had a yellow mare that he was showing, like a lynx mare. And I hauled those 3 horses from California to Memphis, Tennessee. There was a show there that Pigeon was putting on. I showed them there. I picked up Phil at the airport. He flew in. And then we drove to Augusta. And somewhere in there, Mr. Pigeon bought that horse I was showing. I didn't have a job. I didn't have no cares in the world. I was just having fun. I made some finals. I was reserved that year at Augusta. Phil won, I think, the non-pro there. Can't remember. He did good. And then I drove back to California, dropped his rig off. Oh, I dropped Perry Pooh. He bought Perry Pooh. I dropped Perry Pooh at Bar H and then went on to California, dropped the truck and trailer off, picked up my pickup, got my stuff in a little U-Haul, and all my stuff was, I had a Lazy Boy recliner, a color TV, my clothes, saddles, and bridles. That's it. 1 saddle.
And that's when you moved to Texas.
And I turned around, went back to Bar H. And
that's where it all started.
Yeah, that's where Bar H started.
And so I've heard so many stories about how big Bar H used to be and how many horses y'all used to ride. How did that all come about?
Well, it started slow. You know, it was Bob. We were going to be small. And, you know, we had dual pep and it was going to be small. I remember going there. There wasn't a horse on the place. And, I mean, there was that arena was there, and the round pen was there. There was a house, and there wasn't hardly anything there. And Winston and Bobby Pigeon built all that.
Wow.
Built it all that. You know, we cleaned it up. I remember taking manure spreader through there and cleaning the stalls because they were stripping them out.
Wow.
Getting all cleaned up. And, you know, rest is history. Winston and Bobby built that place, you know. I mean, they just added to what was all there. But it was Winston's idea of where to put the paddocks and stuff like that. You know?
Right. And then it just kept growing.
Got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then Pigeon, you know, promoted dual pep. And then CD comes along.
And Winston wins the futurity on him.
Futurity on that horse. You know, pretty soon he's got 2 breeding studs, and
here they come piling in the gate.
Yeah, and then it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Yeah.
What was it like then? Working with your brother out there, having somebody like that to work with daily.
Well, I thought it was fantastic because Winston run it, and I just kind of followed along with him.
I like that.
Whatever he wanted to do, I just did.
Right.
You know, we 2 real personalities were perfect because you can't have 2 bosses.
Absolutely.
Winston was the boss, and I just did what he wanted me to. Hey, how are we working today, Winston? What pen of cattle are we working, Winston? I'd get them, and the way we'd go. Yeah, what are we going to work inside or outside, Winston? All right, let's go. We were going to work flat or round and round, Winston.
And that's how it went.
Yeah, I rode on his coattails.
And he loved that.
Yeah.
He loved being the boss.
Oh, yeah, because he liked it. He was a good boss.
And good at it. Yeah. Yes, sir. He is a good leader.
We traded lopers. If he wasn't getting along with a loper, he'd have one. I said, Paul, we trade lopers and stuff like that. Yeah.
Wow.
Because when it was really going, we each had 2 lopers. There was usually 2 or 3 assistant trainers there. And they could probably all tell stories, man. There's some stories I forgot.
I've heard a few.
Yeah.
I go to church with one of them, and he loves to drop a story in every now and again.
Yeah, but we each had 2 lopers, and we had the horses split.
And that's just that. There you go.
And it worked good. I mean,
yes, sir.
There was no animosity between us or anything.
How many years were y'all there together?
At least 15. I mean, from 91 until Winston left, which was probably in 2015. So what's that? You know, almost 15 years, basically.
That's awesome. So about right in there is whenever you started having kids too, you and Julie.
Yeah, well, I got married. When I moved to Bar H, I was single still. And then me and Julie started dating somewhere 92 because we got married in 93. We lived with Winston. We moved into his house. I had a room, and I lived with Winston. You know, we had a house there that they fixed up a little bit. I had a bedroom. Winston had his room over there, the master bedroom. I just had a little room that had a bathroom hooked to it. But we lived together, and then when me and Julie started dating, and then for the first 3 years, we lived with Winston in that house.
That's
together.
Awesome.
And then when we had the girls, we were still living in that house when we had the girls. The first, not very long, because then we moved a WWII in, fixed it up, and moved a mobile home in there. And we lived in that for about 5 years with the girls right on the place there. It was great. They'd run off up to the barn and
had a ball.
Yeah. Before we bought another little place. And yeah.
That's awesome. So something that I'd like to get into, I know you've won a lot. What year did you win the fraternity? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, 96. I won the fraternity, the year my girls were born.
I was about to say that.
That was the year the girls were born. It was pretty the 90s were awesome, obviously. Those are my strongest years because I won the fraternity and then did really well for I don't know how many years, you know.
Right.
But I
So
won the fraternity in 90. Julie was pregnant. They were born on October 17th of 96, and then won the fraternity in that December of 96. Yeah. Because I got pictures, they're just,
yes, sir.
so they're like 2 months old and one's asleep. With the sport work trophy and stuff,
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So from there, I want to get into your mindset. I think you're one of the strongest people mentally that I've ever met. And it's so incredible to see. You've been at the highs of highs, and you've also been through some of the lows of lows. How have you made it through some of that?
Well, there's some, later on it was, I always thought where how I got it, how I went and where I worked, I always thought it was because of fate. But now I realize it wasn't fate. It was God put me in places. How did I meet Julie, and how come we got married and stuff? And that it turned out to be, it was a God thing, placing me in places. That's how I look at it now. Before I used to think it was fate. Now I know it wasn't fate. It was God put me in places. It was
His plan.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's amazing. And I totally agree with that. And you've definitely been one of the more godly people in my life, and somebody I look up to, and you have been through some tragedies, and how have you been able to get yourself, your family?
Well, I don't know if I would have got through it very good in my early years, because I was a little, I always put my life in thirds. My first, from 1 to 30, single, having fun. 30 to 60, you get married, you have kids, you get serious, raise your family, do things right. And now I'm in my last third.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
However long that ends up being. Now my mom's 100, so I don't know.
And I saw an awesome picture. Y'all all the family got to get back together for her birthday,
my mom's
right?
100 now. So the only way I think I've got through all that, I don't know if I would have got through that without my faith.
Absolutely.
Faith.
And just turning over to God.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
you always, He won't put anything in front of you that you can't handle. That's kind of how I looked at it.
Yes, sir. You were the man for the job.
Apparently. I didn't like it much, but
right.
You deal with it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you deal with it.
That's amazing. What man. I definitely know that was tough. I mean, I don't know, but I know that we sure prayed for you and your family, a lot during that time. And
that's what helped you get through, all the people.
And you were talking about God's plan. I think it's neat too that now He brought you your second wife, who is unbelievable. I know she's been so nice to me and my family, and
she's a sweetheart.
And tomorrow is y'all's 3rd anniversary.
Yeah. Yeah.
How has that been whenever you found her?
Well, I've known for, she was friends. I've known of her for 30 years. She was good friends with a couple of my wife's, great friends. Their family ended up being great friends of ours, and her sisters stood up at our wedding. And she happens to be a widower too. So, to me, it was a God thing. Her husband died not too much before, I don't know, it was before or after Julie passed. And just put it out there, and it just felt, it was, like I said, it was a God thing in my opinion.
Right. Yeah, it was meant to be. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, she's a sweetheart. Nothing about horses, but she's a sweetheart. Yeah.
I remember, I don't even know if you remember this, but you came to my house And you brought her out there. And
when you were building your barn.
Yes, sir. And my wife said when y'all left, she said, I guarantee you Paul's going to marry her. Like that. She said that was an unbelievable fit.
Mm-hmm.
And it was special for us to see because we loved you so much and we loved Julie so much. And to see somebody lose something, you know, that obviously is everything, you know, to see that void get filled was amazing for us as a community to see.
Me and KK talk about a lot. To me, it's a God thing.
That's so amazing.
It's a God thing, in my opinion. Yeah.
So that's so awesome. So back to the futurity, I had one question that the audience, I'm not going to tell you who, about the hot quit. They told me to ask you, did you hot quit?
At the futurity?
Yes, sir.
No. I took my hand off the horn.
That's what it was.
So isn't that a point penalty?
Just 1 point.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I have a habit of...
It cost Johnny Mitchell winning the Open yesterday. He had an unbelievable run on his stud.
Yeah.
God, that Rebel stud is so good.
Yeah, it's a good horse. Yeah.
He did. He took his hand off. It was one of the best runs I ever seen in Silverado.
Did he quit though?
No.
I opened my hand up.
He took it off.
I didn't take my hand on the horn. I did not. I just opened my hand. I went like this. I think it must have been the second cow, I guess. I'd have to watch the video. I don't remember, but it was the second cow, I believe. And I didn't take my hand off the horn. I just opened my hand up. I just went like this and close it again. Is that I don't know. Is that a penalty?
I don't know.
I figured it was a one-pointer.
Point. Yeah, 1 point.
I did not pick my hand up, though.
No, I saw that because I watched the video to replay all this, so I knew the answer.
But I remember I still got the vest that I wore, and I never have worn it again.
Really?
Yeah. What's that, Fusion?
Yeah,
little Fusion.
Yes, sir.
Kind of a little green Fusion. I don't know why it's still sitting in my closet there.
Absolutely. That's a keepsake.
But I remember opening my hand up.
Really?
No, not yet.
No, wait.
Because I have hot quit for no reason whatsoever. I anticipate that cow turning away.
Oops.
It's like Johnny or something.
Absolutely. Well, and like yesterday, I was sitting there, and that run was so fast and just so electric. And Johnny, I mean, he just, he thought about it, and then he stayed hooked, and he still got a great check, obviously.
Yeah.
But
cost him a point, probably.
Yeah, and you know how it is in the Open. Mm-hmm. You leave a point out there, somebody like Clint Allen or you is going to come swipe it up.
No, there's no room for error. But I did take a hand. I just opened my hand, I think.
So, what has been your biggest, what have you strived for whenever you wake up in the morning? What's a day in the life of Paul Hansma training today as opposed to when you were 30 or when you first got married?
The biggest thing today is I know I can't work. I do the exact same thing basically. Sometimes I walk to the barn and I'm gone. I go to the help. Hey, guess what we're going to do today? And they go, what? The exact same thing we did yesterday. Day after day after day.
Repetition.
I mean, since I moved here 40 years ago, we've been trying to do the same thing. It hasn't changed. I think it's mainly the horses, but that's what I tell you that. I haven't said it lately, but it's doing the same thing. You got to train horses over repetition, doing very, very consistent about what you're asking a horse to do. Just be consistent about it, and then they'll figure it out.
You made that sound real easy.
Well, it is very easy. It's very simple. It's not easy.
It's very simple, not easy. I like that.
A simple formula. rate, stop, stay back, turn. But every horse is a little different. You got to tweak it. I do the same thing every day on every horse, but every horse in every situation, I make adjustments to trying to get the same results.
Right. That's impressive.
That's the game plan. It's not easy. It's simple, but it's not easy.
I love that. So, and you've been so instrumental in so many people's lives. You're a great teacher. You love, I mean, do you love to teach? You got to, because I've never seen anybody that can, first of all, I've never seen anybody ask you for help and you didn't help. And to me, I've always admired that, you know, that when you gave your time, man, you didn't just give your time. Like, if you really want to know, don't ask. Like, if you don't want to know, don't ask you, because you're going to tell you, tell them. So what, do you have a passion? I mean, what's that been like, all the people you've helped in this industry?
Well, I don't know. I can't say what it's like. It's just how, you want to be helpful. I want kind of like, that's how I give back. That's kind of how I look at it. I don't want to judge, because I think you should give back. And my forte is not judging. It's going to be teaching and helping somebody.
Yes, sir.
It's not going to be judging, though. I hated. I didn't like reffing. I remember reffing a basketball game and I got flustered. And that was in junior high school. And I said, you know what? I can't. Some people like it. I can't do it. I get flustered. I ain't doing it.
That's, I don't think I'm a very good. I don't think
because
I would
I care about what other people think. Some of those guys don't. I wonder. Well,
see, I do too.
Yeah.
I'm bad. In fact, that's one of my probably worst things about me, is I care too much about what people think.
Well, that's me. Yeah, I don't.
So I should feel pretty good. I like that we have that in common.
Yeah, it's a tough job, and I catch myself every once in a while. I want to come say something, and I go, you know what? If you don't want to get in that box, you can't complain.
Then don't say a word.
Don't say a word.
That's me too. I try not to say a word.
That's their opinion. You like it or not.
Yes, sir. Somebody's still going to win the cut
So
today.
if I do a job, I've always gotten marked.
Yes, sir.
If you do your job, it don't matter who you are. He'll mark you. Maybe not as much as you thought, but I've been overmarked as much as I've been undermarked. It all balances out.
It does balance out. I agree. We were somewhere this last year, and I thought I got overmarked one time, and I can't remember who I was talking to. And they said, well, hey, just smile and wave, because they said there'll be a time that that you're going to need that.
Yeah.
And
yeah, it balances out.
Yes, sir. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So now that you have grandkids and you've slowed down on your training, obviously, but you're still very competitive in training. What does the future look like for Paul Hansma?
Me and KK have a lot of talks about what this has been. When I was 0 to 30, I'm just having fun. I didn't have a plan. I didn't say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be a cutting horse trainer. I just was having a good time from one day to the next. I didn't have any goal.
Just living
I was just living it, and having a good time working when I worked for Bill Riddle and stuff, just having a good time. I didn't go, I can do this. I remember sometime I was working for Bill. The only time I remember I was in Fort Worth, standing on the fence watching somebody show, and I was going, I think I could do this. But I might be only marking 71s, though. I think I can mark 3s and 4s. I haven't learned that yet. And that's when I said, I think I could do this. But before, I was just having fun.
So when you work for Bill, I know Bill's so awesome too,
Yeah.
and trained so many great trainers. Do you have any other people that you obviously, I'm sure your brother and stuff like that.
Well,
but
I mean, growing up, all those guys that we did clinics with, we did lots of clinics. Dad did clinics. We took clinics from lots of guys, and that's all our foundation is from all that. And well, I mean, I like I said, in my opinion, I rode on Winston's coattails, those first 15 years at Bar H. How he wanted to work is how I wanted to work. He tied horses in the corner because of Winston,
right.
And yeah, it was, awesome.
And two, your girls, they showed a bunch growing up in the
Well,
youth
yeah,
that were
I mean,
unbelievable.
They again, that was their passion, horses. They tried other sports, but it always come back to horses. They're girls and they loved horses.
And they're both married to cowboys.
They're both married to cowboys now, yet too. Other than one's a pilot right now.
Well, that's true. He is a cowboy.
Pilot.
Yeah, I was about to say
cowboy pilot, because when he gets off the plane, he gets his hat on.
I was about to say
he would be what I'd call. I don't consider myself I do cowboy things because I'm a horse trainer. I don't consider myself a true cowboy, or else I wouldn't be wearing a baseball cap right now. Jaco's what I call a true cowboy because he wants to wear his hat.
Absolutely. He is. I agree.
Yeah.
I know Jaco real well. He's a cowboy. He comes from a cowboy family. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
It's a heart thing.
That's exactly right. You can
do true cowboy stuff. I can't do true cowboy stuff.
But you are a cowboy in here.
I never consider myself a cowboy. I consider myself hopefully I consider myself a horseman.
Well, you definitely are that.
Not what I would consider a cowboy is someone that wants to be a rancher, can do ranching stuff, and I never leaned toward that. You understand what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like Belafonte loved the ranching lifestyle.
He was a cowboy.
Whole thing he wanted to do, and I don't want to do that. You know what I'm go
right. I got a funny story about. You were close with Buster and stuff too, but when we were out at Buster's, one of the last years he took the wagon out there, did you ever meet Bob Bird?
I met him once or twice, and then his son, little.
So Bob, he told us one time we was all sitting around there having dinner at the wagon, and Buster went off to bed in his teepee, and it was me and Dawson Burns and Bob Bird, and there were several cowboys around, and I actually think Trey Hunt was there this time. And I asked Bob, I said, Bob, you want me to help you carry your stuff into camp? And he said, and he called me man-child. All them guys out there called me man-child back then. And he said, man-child, I'll tell you, there's 3 things I told Buster 20, 30 years ago I'd never use again. I said, what's that? And he said, well, the first one's that bedroll. I said, what's the second one? He said, a rain slicker. I said, well, what's the third one? He said, a hackamore. But anyways, that's pretty cool. So I totally understand what you mean. I used to crave, I still do. I would love to live out there. But after you're on that wagon a while, that wagon gets old.
Yeah, I like to see it, but I never craved it like
right.
Shannon Hall.
He's a cowboy.
He wants to be a rancher.
He's a cowboy.
He's a cowboy. That's in his heart, and he didn't even grow up that way. But he picked it up quick.
That's somebody else. I'm going to have to, it may take you to help me convince him to come on here, but he's got such a great testimony, man. Like you too.
Unbelievable.
And he's such a man of the Lord.
Where he ended up with.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Great family also.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that, like all the relationships that the horse has brought you. And, well, I mean, probably everything, right?
Well, again, if it was not for the horses, I don't meet my wife, first wife, or then I don't even meet my second wife because I don't meet the first wife. It's everything comes back to, and I remember, again, I don't meet my wife. I don't have kids. But it's because of the horses and the horse business. And then You know, when you have tragedy, you find out how good the people really are in this business, the giving, how much they give. Unbelievable. When there's something going on, you know, remember those silent auctions they have? They raise hundreds of thousands of dollars.
In a matter of minutes.
Oh,
really.
yeah. Real
It's
quick.
insane.
When someone has problems, they raise a lot of money for, yeah, it's unbelievable, this industry.
That's cool to hear from somebody like yourself who has given so much to our industry.
Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable.
I know if it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't be sitting here, you know, somebody to look up to and aspire to be, you know, and that's one thing I want to say. I appreciate you for giving us something to reach for.
Well, I don't know how I did that, but anyways.
Well, like you said, it all goes back to, you know, it was God's plan. I truly believe.
Yeah.
You can't make your story up. I truly think it's a story that basically comes right out of the Bible pretty much. The more I get to read, which I'm terrible about it, I've been trying to get better about it, but man, I mean, you really do have a strong testimony. And I just got through interviewing Clay Johnson, and that was amazing. And one thing he said, you know, he lived such a, I wouldn't say terrible life, but not the life he was supposed to be living. And then the right people came along and he found God, and he said on there something that was so striking to me. He said, it's one decision. You find, you make that decision and everything changes.
Yeah. Well, I've always had the wanting to be the right kind of person. You know, that's from your parents. But when you get married and you have kids, I remember that's where I was like, you need to make sure you raise them right. And that's when me and Julie were, you know, we better find a church.
Yes,
you got kids.
Right.
That's when we
really
stepped it up. Yeah, hit you harder, because at first you're just having fun, but that's when you have kids. That's when it changed my perspective quicker. Got to raise them kids right. You better start living by a good example. Yeah.
So, and let's dig into that a little bit. How have you kept that mindset to always be, even when tragedy does strike? How do you keep that mindset of?
I think it's what your parents instilled into you. Do what's right, you know. And again, that's what's in the Bible. You're supposed. It's your guidelines.
Yes, sir.
It's your guide. You know, it's the ultimate self-help book.
Right.
It's the ultimate self-help book.
So you've been in this industry for a long time now. What are the biggest changes you've seen in where it started and now where it's at today?
Well, it's changed from I think at first, if you were a Christian, you were a sissy, and not anymore. And then there used to be, when I first come to work for Bill Riddle, there was the silver bellies on the west side of the arena and the black hats on the west side of the arena, and you didn't intermingle too much. Now it's all together, in my opinion.
Yes, sir.
You know, this was the Buster Welch and over here, and Matlock Rose and the California people were over on that side of the arena with the black hats, you know, and they were the partiers and the have fun guys.
Really?
That's kind of how I felt.
Yes, sir. Right.
You know, the Carters, Roy Carter, and the Punk and John over that side. Yeah.
On the black hat side.
Black hat side over there.
I like that. That's a good way to put it. But you're right. That's how it was.
And then pretty soon and now it's gone. That, in my opinion, that's all gone. And I think that's because, I don't know why, but I think because, it got to be more Christian values come in.
Yes, sir. People not scared to express their Christian values too.
Yeah.
That's cool to hear.
Yeah. I think so.
And too, back then, let's talk a little bit about the difference in horses back when y'all were riding like dual pep and stuff. And you've carried on a long line of horses throughout, a long time. Talk a little bit about that, like Hickapoo and that line of horses, what they've done for you and your family. And I know it's exciting every time I seen you on something that was kind of raised, that y'all raised, that's pretty exciting to me to see.
Again, it's, I don't know how it happened. You come up, again, you see a lot of people that end up with a line and they stay with it, and it shoots up and, makes them. And mine was, it started off with the Hickapoo's mother. And I don't know, Dad finds this mare in an Indian reservation in Yakima, Washington. And a story I heard, he drove out to this pasture. There was a guy that had pasture leased on this Indian reservation, and all the horses took off except for this one yearling filly. She kind of loped off and kind of made a circle and stopped and looked at
your
dad in their truck, in their pickup, driving out there. Dad goes, "What's that? How much you want for that one?" And he bought it. And that was Super Pooh, who is, it's Parker's Trouble and hobby horse bred. And he bought her and brought her home. And we thought she was the littlest, she was 14.2. And we thought that was, back then, quarter horses were 15.2. 14.2. We thought this thing's too little. And that's when I kind of were starting to dabble. I took some cow horse clinics, worked for a guy in California. He ended up being a Hall of Famer too, Bob Knutson. I worked for him for a couple of winters and Snaffle bit her, but she was very natural at what she could do. She's one of those horses you come across the middle and smooch a little bit and she changed leads. Good natural stopper and stuff.
And you had some success in the Snaffle bit.
Well, yeah, I did that for just a couple of years. I won the Snaffle bit fraternity, Canadian Snaffle bit, but that was back in 82. I won the Open and Non-Pro Snaffle bit fraternity. I mean, I didn't know what I was doing. And it was very simple back then. Well, it was, it was very simple program or simple reining pattern. I didn't, what people talk about cutting and stuff. I remember when I was trying to cut, because we had to cut a little bit. I was going to some cow horse shows, a few small cow horse shows, and they had ranch cutting. I chased a lot of cows into the herd. I didn't have a clue where to be. And Winston was in California. When he come home, he told me, he says, when those cows starting to come up, just back up a little bit. And then turn around, and what's ever left, that's the one you can cut. Well,
that changed the game for you.
That changed the game for me, because I walked to that herd, they start rolling around. Of course, cattle are a lot different back then. I remember backing up. Those cows would stop. I'd turn around, and there's a cow standing there. It's the one I would cut.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he told me how to do it. I didn't know.
And Winston had been down here.
Yeah, he worked at
for
Dock Bar Ranch. Charlie Ward, he worked there for, I don't know how, a year, and then Eddie Murphy for a year before he come back to Canada.
Eddie Murphy, the comedian?
This was no
Dr. Doolittle?
No, it wasn't.
No wonder he's so good with a horse.
Eddie Murphy was he rode some. He could get a horse really doing something. And you'll have to interview Winston about Eddie, because that's when he met Ron Gonzalez, and that's when we all met the Gonzalez boys and stuff. The brothers Ron and Gary.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Boy, their hands too.
Oh yeah.
And you and Gary, y'all were
We
tight.
were good
Y'all were
buds. We were tight. Yeah. Yeah, we were tight. Had a lot
That's
of fun.
amazing. So, whenever you went to work for Bill, was there other trainers there working with you? Like
Yeah,
now,
Guy Woods was there when I went to work for Bill for 6 months. That's who I got hired to replace Guy, because he was leaving.
he was going out.
Yeah.
So Bill, that's a long list of trainers.
Yeah, he's had a long list of trainers too. And working for Bill, I've never worked for another trainer like that. He just taught you the consistency.
Right.
Get up every morning at this time. The wintertime or summertime, we start at 6. We quit at 12. We got an hour and a half off for lunch, and we come back and finish up. Wintertime, we start at 7. You got an hour off for lunch. Come back and finish up. He just taught you a lot to just be consistent. Wasn't complicated.
Repetition.
Just repetition. Try to keep your horse.
Consistency.
Yeah, I remember Winston. We interviewed somewhere back then, and they say, I don't know how we did it, but he said, and I same thing. He would say, well, you guys were the first guys to hold the line in the arena. Because back then they used to really curve around the herd where the back fence was really important, Well, they say, I don't know how we did that, but I remember Winston's answer says, I don't know how we did that. We were just trying to get him to cut. We weren't thinking, let's go hold the line. We were just trying to get him to cut.
That's just how you worked.
That's how we worked. And we worked in a snaffle. That's how we were taught.
That was something else I was going to bring up, the snaffle. Everybody acted like that was a big deal. Y'all working
that's how we worked. When we grew up, I remember we worked everything in a snaffle. That's how I think we got that from Bill Collins.
Really?
Bill Collins used to, and Winston, and we did those clinics and stuff, and Bill Collins worked in a snaffle, so we worked in a snaffle. And he taught us how. I remember I didn't work from what Winston did, and I took some clinics from him. But he taught us, when you're going this way, you shift your hand down a little bit, pull the head through the turn. When you're coming the other way, you slide your hand down the rein here, and you pull the head through the turn, and you get to the middle, you stop, and you slide your hand down here.
That's pretty neat.
And then it's a matter of timing and horsemanship skills. But like I said, we were just trying to get them to cut. We weren't trying to flatten the arena out. I don't know how we did that. But like Winston says, we weren't consciously doing that. I think it come because of the different type of horse come along at the right time where they could handle it.
Right.
A little better quality.
That's something else. How has the horse quality changed since? You've seen it change a lot.
It's been tremendous. Again, horses, every generation, there's a few more better horses because you start breeding that way. And just like people, with horses, you take that good horse and you cross it on that good horse, and you're hoping you come up with a good horse. Every generation's going to be just a little better. And that's with people too. Just like every generation, I learned from Bill Riddle's generation and what he learned from the generation before. Well, then now there's a generation that learned from me, and I tweaked what Bill taught me. I make a little tweak, like what Winston Meehan did, what he learned. We make a little tweak and put our little thing on there from what we learned. And then the next generation takes what we learned and taught and how we worked, and they make a little tweak and make it a little better. Because the youth do take over. And then that's with horsepower too.
Wow. That's right.
You take a dual pep and you cross, or a little peppy, and you cross it on Docalina. That's C.D. Alina. And then Dual Pep was Little Peppy crossed on a West Coast type horse.
Right. And then it just keeps.
Which is the cow horse. It was a cow horse bred mare.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, Buster always said if you wanted to be on the front page of that chatter, you had to have a cow horse.
Yeah. Well, it's always still that.
And he told me that was the one thing that would never change in our industry.
Never changes. You got to train a cow horse. They got to work a cow. Yeah.
That's pretty neat. He said that would be the only thing that didn't change in my lifetime.
No, never will change. Because you got a horse that doesn't want to work a cow. And it's not, again, what you do when you start a horse, you break a colt. And to me, a good cutting horse takes a hold of a cow in spite of what we're trying to get it to do. That's what a cutting horse does. They do it in spite of it, and then the other ones that easily distracted, you can't get them to cut.
Right.
So, you get a horse, there's like you go to a 2-year-old person and they get them broke and lope in circles, and then they start putting them on cattle. And then the ones that want to do it, they look, are the ones that we train. In spite of us not trying to get them to quit.
Right.
Clint
Allen told me something years ago when I had my first horse I trained. He came over to the Andersons to work some colts next door. And I remember watching and thinking, God, this guy's incredible. And I remember asking him, I thought I had my horse so trained, I was pumped up, which brings me to another story with you. But he said, I asked him for some help, and he said, well, you need to get him a little broker whenever you go to help him. That way, so every time you pick your hand up, he's hanging up. And so, boy, I went home and worked on that, and he let me go work. I seen him somewhere else, and I thought I had this horse really listening. Well, then it wasn't cutting. And he said, well, you misunderstood me. He said, you want one listening just enough. But he said, you also want them to rip the bridle reins out of your hand to hold a cow, too. And that took me so long to understand. I'm like, man.
It takes years to learn this craft. Yeah. Any craft. But
countless hours of just devotion.
Yeah. You're teaching them a job.
Remember, I don't know if you remember this, but somebody asked you if you had any good 3-year-olds, and you said, I don't know. I think it was me. I asked you one day. You said, I don't know. You said, you? I said, yeah, I think I got a couple of good ones. And you said, you don't know. And I remember going, well, dadgum, you don't know. You ain't seen my 3. I remember thinking that, being young and dumb. And you said, listen, I've had so many horses that you don't know until they walk down there and prove themselves. And I remember you saying something about, I've trained a lot of cutting horses, but then they still have to go become a show horse. And I thought that was always interesting. And now that I've done it a lot more, I totally understand what you were saying. And now when somebody asks me, boy, I keep my mouth a little more shut about them 3-year-olds.
Yeah, no, I agree. There's a process to it. I remember you hear that all the time. Someone says, this horse trained himself. No, it didn't. You had to train it. It was just easier.
Right. It wanted to.
It wanted to, and you still had to train it to do a job.
You still had to get out there.
Yeah. You still got out there. That person, just like I heard that from some people, it didn't train itself. It was just easier to train because it just can do it naturally.
Right. Yeah. Are you still making any bread? Still into bread making?
Just did some, 2 days ago, I guess. Yeah.
Really? So where did that love come from? Where did you pick that up at?
Oh, Mom made bread all the time. And, this is how I started cooking more. Because I used to cook a little bit. When you're growing up, when Mom leaves, Mom cooking all the time. And you either want to do it or you don't, or you kind of have to. And you either try to make it better or not. And then, so I remember when we had the girls. And I remember, I don't know if we had a conversation, me and Julie, but if I were to wait on Julie, because she's the type of person would go, dang, it's 8:00. We need to eat. And I decided, you know what? We need to eat at
more scheduled.
a more scheduled time. I'll do it. So I did most of the cooking.
Really?
Yeah. So we had a good team. She's helping raising the kids. And I'd come to the house and make dinner.
That's pretty neat. I grew up like that too. My dad did a lot of the cooking. He loved to cook. Still does. I don't know why, because I'm terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe not terrible, but I don't put any time into it. So
yeah. I don't put a lot of time into it because it's got to be done in 30 minutes to an hour.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not. And Julie would have to have a recipe and she would follow it. Me, I'm more of a fly by the seat of my pants. Kind of like training a horse.
Just go
you
off
do
a
it a
little
little
feel.
different every time. It's like, well, KK pisses her off. It makes her mad because you didn't follow a recipe? No. I kind of look at a recipe, but if I'll kind of do something a little different, well, you can't do it next time. I know. I don't know.
I don't remember.
I don't remember how I did it.
Right.
I tried this and this and this and this, but I don't write it down.
Right. What are your favorite foods to make?
Oh, I don't. Just whatever's in that fridge or whatever,
Whatever you can throw together.
Yeah. Oh, you can't beat steak and potatoes, and a vegetable. And kind of how we grew up, we were a protein and potatoes and a vegetable. Every dinner we had chicken, pork, or beef with potatoes. Every dinner time.
Which is awesome.
Every
kind of
dinner
meal.
time. Because we weren't rich, but when you talk to other people, we definitely, we never went hungry.
Right.
Dad provided.
Well, it's amazing. I would like to hear more about your dad because it sounds like he had such an
He's
influential
got a great
role.
story. He was in the underground in World War II when the Germans took over Holland. Dad was in I don't know if he was in the army, but he went underground. And there's some articles on him. He never talked about it. I didn't. I found a lot of this out after he passed. But he was in the underground in the resistance.
Wow. So
Yeah.
he was a war hero.
Yeah, I guess. But it was, he never talked about it. He never got there was no medals, but they were looking for him. The Germans I heard some stories where just lately, I know one of his sisters put a little article or something, and he was high up in the resistance. The Germans were looking for him. They had him arrested once.
Wow.
And apparently the guy that was in charge got killed in combat, and the guy that took over let Dad go. But I know one of Dad's sisters and her kid, they arrested her and put her in a concentration camp trying to get her to turn evidence over to find Dad.
And did she ever get out of there?
Yeah, she lived. Yeah.
Wow. What a story.
Yeah.
And he never did talk about it much.
Mm-mm. Never. No.
Which is pretty amazing. No telling what he went through.
Oh, yeah. There's no telling what he saw. I remember my cousin told me a story about my uncle, which was Dad's younger brother. they were hiding in the fields, and back then they had, the stooks of grain sitting out there, and people were hiding, and the Germans were going through there with their bonnets and poking them in case someone was in there. And my uncle was in one of those with my grandfather, but they stopped because something happened up the road, and they turned and left before they got to the stooks where they were hiding in.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But
that's hard to even fathom. We don't even live in a world like that.
I just remember everybody complaining about during COVID, and they had to wear masks, and everybody was bowed up about wearing masks. And I used to think about, listen, this is nothing compared to what, you get invaded by another country, like Holland. I mean, you talk about strip all your everything away. They could tell you what to do, and Mom,
you either do it or die.
Stories about they didn't have heat. They ate what they used to live on was sugar beets, raw sugar beets. Toward the end of the war, that's all they got to eat.
Wow.
There was no heat. There was nothing left.
They took it all from them.
Well, yeah, because the Germans had to live too. So I guess Mom would have to tell me more stories. But yeah, they didn't have anything.
That's amazing too, how tough that generation of people were. Just like that picture you showed me of your mother. Yeah, 100 years old, and she looked incredible to me. Oh yeah, her
mind is amazing. When she takes off with her walker, you better keep up.
She's going somewhere.
We're not.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
So was your family Christians?
Yeah, we grew up in a church. Kind of once we got a little older and into teenager, but there was a Dutch community up there where we grew up, and there was a Dutch church, Christian Reformed Church. And we grew up in a church. I remember going to church and doing catechism, and then some summer schools, and we knew all the Christmas stories and Bible stories. I remember learning all that. And as we got older, as we got to be teenagers, when you can make your own decision, you drift away, and you end up. We were more into having fun, and you do things. That's part of your history. I wish I wouldn't have done. Drinking too much and partying, just having fun. And I think about some of these guys, like Taryn, got married when he was young, or his dad, Boyd, 18 years old. And
yeah, both of them married when they were both real young. No way.
What my son-in-law's doing, how young he is and how good he's done already. And I'm thinking about what I was doing at that age.
It's unbelievable.
I was just a partying little, having fun, happy-go-lucky. And that's been my attitude a little bit. I don't set goals. I don't set goals. I just take it one day at a time, or, with cutting horses or something, is 1 year at a time.
1 year at a time.
Basically, you start another group of colts, and here you go.
That's pretty amazing. I've never heard it put like that.
I've never set goals that way. I never kept track of my winnings, or I never, every show I wanted to go to, I wanted to be just a consistent, respected, consistent, good horse trainer. And hopefully by the end of it, be known as a horseman. That was what I wanted to be. And then with good values.
I love that. Well, you definitely have. To me, you've laid such a, you talked earlier about the foundation of your mom and dad, and then y'all raising your girls, how you got to change and lay that foundation. And just like you said, when you're a teen and you go off and make your own decision, you drift away. But that foundation, if it's set right, you will come back to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's what it did for me. I remember when I had those, when we had the girls, that's when I was like,
It will wake up call.
well, I don't know if Julie brought it up, if you raise them upright, and then when they drift away, they'll come back. I remember
Very important.
we talked about that. Yeah. Yeah.
That's very, very awesome. So if anything, do you have a quote or a saying to anybody, like if you could leave the world with one thing, what would it be?
And to have faith and in have faith, because that's all there is to it. Because that's what I realized. Just like, because that's all there is to it. This is just a prequel to where we're going next, and just like when my wife got hurt and she got, she become an invalid basically, and it was 4 years, and I remember my prayer was to take her home or make her whole again. Well, they made her whole, but and that's when you really realize this life is just part of the journey. Part of the journey is this.
It's a small step.
Maybe 100 years if we have it here, however long that is. Julie went home before me. In my opinion, Julie's the, other than some of those people that get to, Milt and stuff like that, they are so happy. They don't know sadness. They're looking down here and going, hey, don't worry about it. You're going to be all right.
Wait till you get here.
Yeah, wait till you get here. It's so
You
awesome.
never seen nothing like this.
Yeah.
And
it's all that misery's gone. Yeah.
Yeah. No more pain. No more misery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Because it's not easy down here.
It's really not. There's a lot of worldly things that
it's kind of scary, isn't it?
It is scary, and especially the times we live in. Just talking about how your father and mother
what
grew
he
up.
lived through. It's nothing what we had to go through.
It's nothing. I mean, it's crazy the road they paid for.
I didn't have to fight in any wars.
And never had to worry about an obviously you hear the news, but we ain't had to worry about none of that. Guys coming along, prodding their knives through stacks of grain. That's amazing. Yeah, we got it pretty easy.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. No, this is a great country to grow up in. That's for sure.
So tomorrow's your 3rd anniversary with KK.
Mm-hmm.
Got any plans?
We are going to have dinner in Dallas.
I was going to ask
we're going to dinner in Dallas. The mansion. I don't know where that is. She told me about it. Actually, I've heard about that place. I've never been there before, so we're going there.
Y'all going to stay there tomorrow night?
No, we'll just have dinner. Back? Just have dinner. We go early. We're in that age group now where you go for the early dinners and then come home.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, we don't stay out late anymore.
I like that. And I don't blame you.
No. I got I'm double sixes now, so
66 years old.
Yeah.
That's amazing. What about, speaking of fraternity horses, you got a few, you said.
Well, this is the least I've had I got 4. So I got 4 to play with. They're all right. I don't know if they're great, but that's kind of how I've always been. I'm never just what I said to you. And I remember reading a book about, there was a basketball coach, John Wooden. He's a legend in a college basketball player. And don't make the highs too high, because then the lows won't be so low. And I've always just one day at a time. Don't make things too, kind of just train. And don't take it, don't. And I tell people all the time, kids, young guy like you or something, train at the barn, do what you got to do at work, and leave it at the barn and go to the house and have fun with your family. You have your horses don't work good or something, you're having a bad day or something, just leave it at the barn and go to because that's the important part is the family.
Yes, sir.
Just like you're making
some decisions.
You can't do it all. You can make decisions for your family. Yeah.
Yes, sir. That's amazing. Yeah. Well, and it's cool to hear because it's something that in this industry, I think it can take over people's lives. We see it day in, day out. And it's hard not to fall in that trap. I know I've sure done so many things wrong, but it's hard not to fall into that, taking it home with you, and then, boy, I owe my wife everything. She's been tough and stayed through it all. And I'm a big sissy and come home and whine and stomp my feet and cry about it.
Yeah, that's part of it too. You got to learn from you learn from mistakes. That's how you get through life, from mistakes, and learn from it, because you're gonna.
Yes, sir. I got a new boy working for me at the house, and he's asking me all the time training questions. I'm like, listen, I'm learning with you, but I'm like, I do know one thing: if they don't ever mess up, how are we going to teach them to not? So I said, you got to let them mess up. And Taryn always taught me that, like, a good horse trainer will keep one from getting in a bind, but a great horse trainer will let one get in a bind and then teach them how to get out of it.
Yeah. As long as you work on that foundation.
That's pretty amazing.
Wait, stop, stay back, turn. In that order. You can't mix it up.
Keep it simple.
Basically, and you can do it. And then once you get that foundation all really good, and then you can make some tweaks.
Put a little sauce on it.
Well, but that comes with the right horse.
Right.
It all comes down to the horsepower. If you, again, the hard part about training a horse is to make it as good as it can be, not what you want it to be. You can't do it, especially in cutting, because cutting, you got to put your hand down. And if they're physically limited, you put your hand down and you may be able to trick them for just a little while, but their physical limitations will come to the surface real quick because they can't. That'd be like me trying to train me to be a linebacker. I'm physically can't do it. I don't care how much you beat me to do it. I can't.
Right.
Yeah. Or me being trying to make me be a sprinter. I don't care how hard you beat me. I can go to the world's best trainer for, say, a sprint coach, and he can improve my time, but I'll never be world class. You got to have a God-given talent, and that's with horses too.
Yes, sir.
You got to have that God-given talent, and then you can then you have to do the manipulation and train that horse to be what it can be.
Right. Ride the horse you got, not the one you want.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. I mean, basically, really, all I've ever done was I train all my horses to be, basically a 71 or a 72 horse. That's just the foundation, just trying to stay there. And then the more talent they are, they can do more. They can do more, not me. Yeah. Just a real good, simple Buster Welch use the KISS method. Keep it simple.
Stupid.
Yeah.
Is what he used to tell me.
He
added the stupid to me a lot.
Well, keep it simple, stupid. And basically it is. Rate, stop, stay back, turn. In time with the cow. Yeah.
I love that.
Always is going to be that's the cow. But the rider has to be cowy too.
Yes. so much timing and
It's your timing.
feel.
Yeah.
What how has that changed? Like cutting, I remember you saying Winston taught you how to ride up through there and back up and cut the one that stays.
Well, every generation is better than the last generation. You know,
Like you said, the youth takes over.
Well, I learned from Bill Riddle. He taught me some things, and then I put little tweaks on it. And then the next generation watches me and makes some little tweaks on it, and they're going to be better.
I was with a couple of your proteges today, Cullen and Hayden, at the show.
Oh,
They they had all kinds of things for me to bring up on here.
probably some we can't bring up.
Well, Cullen said they really wanted to ask who was better, who was your favorite out of them two. Each one of them had a different opinion too, if you can imagine.
They were fun. A lot of fun. I ain't gonna answer that question. They're both good hands.
I forgot who it was today sitting over there.
They're both good hands. We had a lot of fun, those guys.
I told them you were coming on. They were talking about that. I can't remember if it's Boyd or somebody. They said, I doubt he brings either one of y'all up. He said, y'all still got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, we had fun. We had a lot of fun.
It's pretty amazing, though, to watch how much you've, just like Hayden, today I'm sitting there watching and his little boy Willie's up in the stands and like you said, that foundation and I guarantee you Hayden learned a lot of that from you, you know, and you can see how much life and how much love this little boy has, and it's pretty fun to watch that.
Yeah. No, kids will change. Kids, they change you for the better because it gives you something what life's really about.
Yes, sir. Yes,
about
sir.
Raising that family and stuff. That's the most important thing. And just like how Dad got into horses. He said, hey, how'd these kids get so big? Because he was out working, farming. And he says, he started to figure out something to do that he could watch us, you know, and be part of.
And here
we are in that horse business. If it wasn't for Dad, you know, who knows what we'd be doing.
And you got 3 Hall of Famers, and that's pretty amazing.
Thought that, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. So faith, family, and foundation. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else you'd like to talk about on here that you want to disclose?
No. You have to ask the questions.
Well,
kind of some of that stuff embarrasses the crap out of me when you.
No, I know it.
Yeah.
I'm with you. That's why I think you just nailed it. I loved, you talked about everything that I wanted to talk about, and I love that. Faith, and to me, that's everybody, you know, me and Taryn, I told him a while back, they've been wanting me to do this, and I said, I can't wait I got to get Paul Hansma on there. He's one of my heroes, and me, him, and Matt sat there and talked about how much you've been a part of our lives.
Yeah, we saw it. Lots of kids grow up.
Yeah. It's amazing, really.
Yeah, lots of kids grow up.
Which is probably weird for you now because everybody's showing, and
oh yeah,
now we all got kids, and
kids got kids.
Your kids got kids, and here
kids
we go.
Are taking over. A lot of kids are, a lot of good young hands coming up. Gosh almighty, they're good.
Tough, isn't it?
Oh yeah, good horses, a lot better. Well, the horses are still the important part. It's easier. Horses are much better. Yeah.
More of them too, right?
And more of them. Well, that's because you're breeding good to good.
Right.
Even
and
back in the day, they're breeding good to good, but now we're specialized.
The technology now one mare's having 5 babies a year, and
well, that speeds it up. Just even in the even in the cow industry, you know, the bucking bulls or whatever like that, you know, cows are even easier to breed,
right,
than horses,
right.
They flush 50 embryos a year off of a cow, you know,
which is amazing, really.
Yeah.
Somebody said
that just speeds it up.
Somebody said, I forgot who it was, but they said back then it was hard for an owner to, even if you had the right owner with the money to go buy whatever horse you wanted, there wasn't as many out there to get.
There need to pick on. Yeah, wasn't any to pick from.
And
yeah,
somebody asked the question of, is it harder today for somebody new coming in? And he said, absolutely not, because there's so many more. You know, you may buy an embryo out of Stylish Play Lena, and the one they kept may not be as good as the other four, you know, or whatever. You don't know.
You don't know. Yeah. You don't know.
Well, Paul, I can't thank you enough for your time and for what you've done. It.
Hopefully I answered some of the questions, I guess.
I got a great editor.
Okay.
But
I really enjoy listening to podcasts and listen to people's stories.
What podcast do you like to listen to?
Well, I listen. You did Bo and Ashley. That was interesting.
Yes, sir.
You know, listen to their story, because some of that stuff I didn't know.
You didn't know.
No,
right.
I didn't know. I didn't know at all this pod. And I've listened to this one. I've listened to a lot of them. You know, whatever comes up, 8-1 or that now this one. And I've listened to some of the cow horse guys. What are those?
Yes, sir. Cow horse full contact.
Yeah, full contact.
Chris Dawson.
I've listened to some of theirs. I've listened to Converse Cowboys.
Mike Roberts.
I've listened to most of it's the horses deal.
Yes, sir.
And some other ones too, but a lot of horse deal, because you listen to their struggles. You know, I've listened to Casey Deary's, and I tell some of those kids that are working for me, listen to that. Look where he started from. What he rode. Michael Cooper or whatever. What did he rode? What they rode. It wasn't
fun.
Easy. It was
it was fun.
Just horse. I mean,
it was a step.
Yeah.
It was a step.
Some of that stuff they had to ride, and it wasn't just horsepower. You know, it wasn't much. I like listening to those stories. And
yes, sir.
Todd Bergen and stuff. You know, he rode the ponies and the 4-H, and where he got to be.
And he's amazing too. Yeah. Great guy.
Yeah. But listen to everyone's story. It's good to hear.
It is fun to listen to, and I'm with
those
you.
Those guys are persevere and just keep going, and yeah.
Well, and there's so many people out here. I know myself. You know, I used to be in a spot when I was struggling, and I still struggle lots. But
I'll still never.
Boy,
quits.
when I mess up or I do something stupid, or you know, not even in the cutting pen, but in life, and I used to put so much shame and guilt on myself, you know, and really, luckily, finding the Lord has helped so much with that. But but it's crazy how much of the same struggle I share with so many people, and to me, that's what I want to share is the struggle.
Oh yeah,
you know,
the hardest thing is if you talk to enough trainers, we all have that same confidence problems. You know what? Pick something and go cut it. You got to put your hand down. And if something goes bad, how much you beat yourself up. I mean, I'm fraternity time. That first cow at the fraternity finals, I was pumped. I was ready to go. Cow into the herd. I was so disgusted with myself. It took me a long time to get over that one.
But it doesn't define Paul Hansma.
No, but it took me a long time to. I beat myself up a lot for.
Which is awesome to hear.
With everybody. Yeah, oh my gosh, I was so disgusted with myself.
It's hard not to be.
Here goes last hole. Damn it.
All this work. 2 years of work right down the drain.
Yeah, I did it in the finals, and I appreciate it all, but
it's not like that.
It's best to mess up in the finals, but it is not fun when you do mess up. Whenever it happens, it sucks.
Yes, sir. Pick your chin up and keep going.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Tomorrow's a new day.
And I've been able to let go of that pretty quick, so that's good. I remember, I don't know what tennis player, and he was one of the best in the world. And he says, you know what? I won 51% of my points. And he was one of the greats. So he had to learn how to lose. You have to learn how to lose. The hardest thing is learning how to lose. The winning's easy. That's fun.
Right.
But learning how to lose, yeah, that's the hard one.
That's true. I mean, that's mic drop right there, because it is. It's a struggle.
Thing. It's losing.
Some people can't handle it either. It gets some people.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But it's amazing.
If you dwell on, you learn from your mistakes. But if you dwell on them,
you're gonna get worse.
It's gonna get worse.
That hole's gonna get deep, because I've done it.
Oh yeah, we all struggle with that. It's how to keep going. And again, showing. I tell people, and maybe that helped me a lot too. I remember listening to, and there was a book that I read, Jim Lear, maybe, I think, and showing is an acting job. Act confident, even if you don't feel it. You have to. If you don't, you got to be a good actor. Because that's all we're doing. We're all kind of at the fraternity. I remember, again, when we're younger, like, I guess you're still in your 30s, you think, man, I wish I could figure this out. It wouldn't be so hard. Well, that never gets easier. Training a horse doesn't get easier. It's an everyday, get out there. It doesn't get any easier as you get more knowledge. You just know that it doesn't get easier. That's the difference.
You know how to handle it a little easier.
Well, no,
probably.
You know it's not easy. You know it doesn't just happen. It's a struggle.
It's simple. It's not easy.
No, it's a struggle to get a horse trained, and you got to go through the struggle. And again, in showing a horse, it's about acting.
Right. That's your stage for 2.5 minutes.
Yeah, you act like you're confident. Hide your true feelings.
Right. Which is hard to do sometimes.
Oh, yeah, but you have to.
Especially when the world's watching you.
Yeah. But act it.
Right. I love that. And lead by example too. That's one thing.
I learned that by watching people, see who's doing good and you watch them. Yeah. I remember, again, you watch those guys and you learn from them. Yeah.
Who would have been the guys you watched the most coming up?
Back in the day, when I was working for Bill Riddle, there's, Bill Freeman was hot, and Terry Riddle and Pete Branch, and then Greg Welch and Gary Belafonte. That's the generation in front of me. And I used to watch them and watch Greg Welch, and I remember him just marching up there and cutting.
Really?
Time and time again, yeah. Yeah.
That's cool. It's kind of like deja vu, because we do the same thing with you guys.
Everyone does that,
Right.
Yeah. And just, act more confident than you feel. Because you think someone's, I remember someone telling me, Paul, you got ice water in your veins. My foot was rattling in the stirrup. Okay? I'm walking to the herd. Look at the cow you're talking to my horse, It's going like this, looking up and standing.
A lot of people in here.
But yeah, my foot's rattling in the stirrup.
Right.
It's all an acting job. You make people think that you're confident.
Yes, sir.
Your heart's a boom, 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 boom.
Right.
Yeah.
That's so true. I'm glad to hear you say that.
Oh,
That's going to be good for all the young guys out there.
My foot in the stirrup, just pouncing in the stirrup. Yeah.
Well, and too, so many guys feed off of that too. That I think that's why we do it, right? I mean that.
Well, it's an adrenaline rush. That's for darn sure. It's a good life. I mean, you know what? We don't have to punch a clock. We got to put hours in, but it's our choice. It's
Yes,
our
sir.
choice to put the hours in. Someone's not making us do it. It's our choice. It's a good life. We're kind of our own bosses a little bit, just like you can make your decisions, how much
Yes,
you
sir.
want to work. You want to be more family, you can.
Right.
Branch out like you guys are with this podcast or the horse sales. I think that's awesome. Using, a different way to make money.
Yes, sir.
That's what we're doing it for, to make money.
Try.
And just know that someday you're going to get old. You're going to have to slow down. And hopefully you saved and did what you're supposed to do, and saved and raised your family so that you can retire. Not forced. You can if you want to, and you're not forced to.
Yes, sir.
Because you're going to get older. You can't do
inevitable.
it anymore. Yeah.
Well, Paul, thank you so much for coming on, and I can't wait for everybody to listen to this. You're definitely one guy that everybody looks forward to hearing whenever you speak. So thank you again.
You're welcome. Enjoyed it.
And I hope you and KK have a great anniversary dinner tomorrow night.
We are. I'm not cooking. No, we have fun.
Awesome.
We have fun. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yes, sir.